There are two metals sitting in almost every hardware store in America, cheaper than a single bag of name brand pest control, and most gardeners either ignore them completely or use them so wrong that they decide the whole idea is a myth. One of them stops slugs and snails dead at the edge of your bed without a single drop of poison. The other one, when it is missing from your soil, quietly makes every plant in your garden weaker and easier for pests and disease to take down. By the end of this video, I will show you exactly how both of them work, why university extension scientists actually recommend the first one, and the simple mistakes that make people give up on them too early. And inside the companion guide, linked below, called the Sovereign Garden Code, I have written out 3 specific protocols I could not fit into this video, including the exact barrier width that stops even the largest snails. But first, let me show you what the copper is actually doing, because the real mechanism is stranger than the marketing. Let me tell you about a gardener I will call Frank, because his case is the most common one I see. Frank is 61, he grows hostas and leafy greens, and for 3 seasons running, his seedlings were getting shredded overnight. He tried beer traps, he tried crushed eggshells, he even tried staying up at night with a flashlight. Then he wrapped his raised beds in copper and told me it did nothing. When I asked him how wide the copper strip was, he said about ½ inch. And that right there was the entire problem. Anyway, let me explain the science and then I will come back to Frank. Copper works against slugs and snails through something called a galvanic reaction. A slug or a snail moves on a layer of moist mucus, and that mucus is full of salts, which means it conducts electricity. When that mucus touches copper, the metal reacts with it and produces a tiny electrical charge. Researchers at the University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources measured this charge at roughly ½ volt up to about 1½ volts. Newcastle University in England measured a similar range, depending on how pure the copper was. To you and me, that is nothing. To a soft-bodied mollusk dragging its bare flesh across it, it feels like an unpleasant tingle, and the animal almost always turns back within a couple of seconds. This is not a poison, and it is not a repellent smell. It is a physical barrier that the animal chooses not to cross. That matters, because it means there is nothing to wear off, nothing to reapply after rain, and nothing that the slug can build a tolerance to. Now here is where most people, including Frank, get it wrong. The single most important factor is the width of the copper. A slug can rear up and stretch the front of its body across a narrow strip without ever fully committing its moist underside to the metal. If the strip is too thin, the animal simply reaches over it like a person stepping over a crack in the sidewalk. Garden trials, including a well-documented time-lapse experiment, found that a strip around 2 inches wide deterred the large majority of slugs and snails, while a narrow strip let them stroll right across. So when Frank used a ½ inch strip, he was not testing copper at all. He was handing the snails a handrail. The second mistake is using copper-plated material instead of real copper. Cheap copper-colored tape often has a thin coating over another metal, and once that coating wears through in a few months, the galvanic reaction stops. Solid copper, or genuine copper mesh, keeps working for years. And contrary to a very common myth, the copper does not need to be wet or weathered to work. In fact, dry, bright copper tends to work a little better because a heavily tarnished, corroded surface conducts electricity poorly, and if it cannot carry the charge, it cannot deter anything. Before I go on, I want to be straight with you about what copper does and does not do. This is the honest part that the flashy version of this idea always skips. Copper is a barrier for slugs and snails. It is not a magic field that eliminates every pest in your garden. It will not touch aphids, it will not stop caterpillars, it will not repel beetles or deal with mites. Anyone who tells you 2 metals will eliminate any pest is selling you a fantasy, and I'm not going to do that. What copper genuinely does, it does extremely well, for one specific and very destructive category of pest, at a cost of a few dollars. That alone is worth knowing. Now let me turn to the second metal, because this one works in a completely different way, and almost nobody talks about it. Zinc. Most people only know zinc as the stuff in sunscreen or vitamins, but zinc is one of the essential micronutrients your plants absolutely require in tiny amounts to function. Here's the part that connects it to pests. When a plant runs short on zinc, it cannot build certain enzymes and proteins properly. Its growth slows, its new leaves come in small, narrow, and yellowed between the veins, and its root system stays weak and shallow. And a weak, stressed plant is exactly the kind of plant that pests and diseases target first. The University of California Integrated Pest Management Program and several university extension offices document this clearly. Zinc deficiency produces undersized, yellowing new leaves, shortened spacing between leaves that creates little tufts or rosettes, and reduced vigor overall. A plant in that state has weaker defenses and is more vulnerable to stress and to certain pathogens. So zinc does not kill pests. What it does is remove the weakness that invites them in. A well-nourished plant with adequate zinc builds stronger tissue, recovers faster, and is simply a harder target. Think of copper as the fence around the yard, and zinc as the plant's own immune strength. One keeps a specific intruder out, the other makes the whole garden less inviting to attack in the first place. But there is a catch with zinc, and this is critical, so listen closely. You cannot just dump zinc into your soil and assume more is better. Zinc deficiency is often not caused by a lack of zinc in the soil at all. It is caused by conditions that lock the zinc up so the roots cannot absorb it. High soil pH, heavy liming, and very high phosphorus levels can all trigger a zinc deficiency even when zinc is physically present in the ground. Pile on extra zinc without understanding that, and you can swing into toxicity, which harms the plant just as badly. The symptoms of zinc deficiency also closely resemble iron deficiency, manganese deficiency, and even herbicide damage, which is why guessing is dangerous. The only reliable way to know is a proper soil or plant tissue test, and then correcting the actual underlying condition, not just throwing more product at the leaves. And that is exactly where I have to draw the line on what I can responsibly fit into a 10-minute video. I need to be honest with you for a moment. I can tell you that copper width matters and that zinc unlocks plant strength. What I cannot do here, without it taking an hour, is hand you the exact numbers. So in the companion guide, The Sovereign Garden Code, I wrote out 3 things in full. First, the precise copper barrier specification, the minimum width, and how to mount it on a raised bed so that not even the largest snail can bridge it. Second, the diagnostic checklist for telling zinc deficiency apart from the look-alikes, iron, manganese, and herbicide damage before you treat the wrong thing. Third, the safe correction method, including how to read whether your real problem is low zinc or locked zinc from high pH or excess phosphorus, so you fix the cause instead of poisoning the plant. Those 3 protocols are the link in the description and pinned in the top comment. The guide is a one-time thing, not a subscription, and it comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee, no questions asked. If it does not help you, you ask, you get your money back, and you keep the guide. Okay, back to the video, because I want to leave you able to act on this today, even if you never buy a thing. Here is the honest, no-cost version you can start with this afternoon. For slugs and snails, get solid copper, real copper tape or copper mesh, not plated, and make your barrier a good 2 inches wide, with no gaps where a leaf bridges over the top. Keep the surface reasonably clean so it can conduct. For zinc, do not buy anything yet. First, look at your new growth. If young leaves are small, narrow, and yellowing between green veins, and the plant looks stunted, get an inexpensive soil test before you treat, because the fix depends entirely on whether the zinc is absent or just locked up. Those 2 simple checks will already put you ahead of most gardeners who are either ignoring these metals or using them wrong. So here's what I want you to picture. One version of your garden, 3 weeks from now, where the slugs hit a 2-inch copper wall and turn around, and your seedlings are finally getting past their first week intact. And the other version, where you did nothing, and you're back outside at midnight with a flashlight like Frank was. The difference is a few dollars of the right metal, used the right way. If this was useful, and you want the kind of plain, science-first gardening that respects your intelligence, subscribe to this channel, because that is the only kind of content I make here. I will see you in the next one.